Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss the current affairs of 1st January 2021. So first of all, I want to wish you a very happy new year for all of you. So now let's get started with our discussion and let us see the first article. Title says core sector output shrinks 2.6% in November. So this article mainly talking about core sector. So this core sector, it is one of the important topic in your economy which comes under GS paper 3, and you can expect the questions from prelims point of view regarding this core sector. Now let us see the context and as well as some important details which are highlighted in this article and as well as some facts regarding this core sector. So context says that output from the India's 8 core sectors that hit a 3-month low in the month of November. So it is saying that there is a contraction of 2.6% in the festive month, that is in the November. So if you see some details, it mainly says that when we are comparing this core sector output with the earlier months, that is in August, it was contracted 6.9%. And in September it contracted just minus 0.1%, and in October just 0.9%. But if you see in the month of November, there is a contraction of 2.6%, that is evident. And regarding these important sectors, that is coal, fertilizer and electricity, they only recorded positive growth from the year on basis. And coal, which is rose 4 months high, that is 2.9%, and electricity output which rose for the 3rd month in this row, that is a bit at a slower pace, but we can see some positive growth in electricity, that is 2.2%. And in the fertilizers, we are seeing there is a growth that is seen from last 8 months, and we also see there is a growth of 3.8%. And other sectors like refinery products, natural gas, crude oil, steel, cement, they are facing extreme contraction. And now let us see some facts regarding this 8 core sectors. So we have totally 8 core sector industries, and they mainly comprise about 40.27% of the weight of items in the index of industrial production. And those 8 sectors include fertilizer, electricity, refineries, natural gas, steel, cement, coal, crude oil. So this is the important mnemonic to remember these 8 core sectors. And if you see regarding this core sector, the decreasing order of the weightage will also important. So if you see this decreasing order of weightage, it includes refinery, which is more compared to that of the electricity. Electricity, it is more compared to steel. Steel is more compared to coal. Coal is more than crude oil. Crude oil, it is more than natural gas. Natural gas is more than cement. And finally, the low thing, that is with the fertilizer. And now let us see some facts regarding the index of industrial production. So first of all, what is this index of industrial production? So if you see this index of industrial production, it provides mainly details out of the growth of how the different sectors in our economy and their growth. For example, we can say mining and minerals, electricity and manufacturing. So these are the 3 important components under this index of industrial production. And this index of industrial production, which will be compiled and as well as it will be monthly published by Central Statistical Office, which comes under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And the base year to calculate this index of industrial production here is 2011 to 2012. So these are some important facts that you should remember regarding this article. Now let us see the next article. Title says new chief justice for 4 high courts. So this article mainly talking about transfer of chief justices of 4 high courts and as well as the additional judges. Now let us see this article, and this article will be very, very important from polity point of view, which comes under GS paper 2. So let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. And this topic will be very, very important regarding mains point of view. So if you see the context, it mainly says that Law Ministry notified the elevation of 4 judges as chief justices mainly from the Madras High Court, Orissa High Court, Telangana High Court, and as well as Jammu and Kashmir High Court. And there is also transfer of about 10 other judges as well. So if you see some details which are given in this article, it says that Supreme Court Collegium mainly recommended for the transfer of this four chief justices and as well as elevation of the some other judges. So because of this article, it is in news. So now let us see the process here. The process of selection and as well as the transfer of the judges. At present, selection and the transfer of judges of the Supreme Court and as well as the High Court judges will be done by the President of India, mainly on the consultation with the collegium system. And this collegium system mainly contains 5 judges. The first one is CJI of Supreme Court and the next one is 4 other senior most judges. If you are talking about the selection and the transfer of the High Court judges, so it will be done by the collegium, which contains the CJI, 2 senior most judges of Supreme Court and as well as the Chief Justice of concerned High Courts. So from where this High Court judge which is transferring and to which court he is transferred. So these 2 concerned High Court Chief Justices, they were included. And now let us see the criteria for the transfer. So this criteria will be very important regarding mains. The first thing here you should remember, that is when a judge is appointed as Chief Justice. So because of this, generally transferred to another High Court. So whenever the judge of that court, he is appointed as a CJI of that court and that CJ of that High Court will be transferred to the other court. And the next one is in case of any lawyer from the bar, he is appointed as a judge when a judge is promoted to High Court or in that case the transfer will be done. And the next one is in any instance of any complaint of corruption or any other cases that is leading to the impeachment of the judge, then that judge will be transferred. So it is also called as punishment transferring. So these are some important criteria for the transfer of judges. Now let us see the next article. Title says fiscal deficit shoots up to 135% of target. So this article will be very important regarding economy point of view. And this topic, it is important regarding both the prelims and as well as mains. So in mains, it is under GS paper 3. So let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. If you see the context, it mainly says that India's fiscal deficit that shot up to 135% of the budget target and it is nearly 8 lakh crore for financial year 2020 to 2021, which is high. And if you see from last 8 months, we are seeing the fiscal deficit that is evident. And this is the data which is mainly released by the Comptroller General of Accounts. Now let us see some details. So under this article, it also talked about the revenue deficit. It says that revenue deficit also crossed 125% in the first half of the year. And in the November, it reached 140% of the revenue deficit. So if you are talking about the fiscal deficit, so in the month of October, it was 120%. So in the month of November, it is 135%. Now the fiscal deficit, it is about rupees 10.8 lakh crores. So first of all, what is this fiscal deficit? So fiscal deficit means whatever the shortfall that is facing by the government, whenever it is comparing with the income of the government and as well as the spending. So whenever the spending which is more compared to that of the income, so this condition, it is called as fiscal deficit in a simple terminology. And if you see the formula to calculate this fiscal deficit, that is total expenditure minus total income. Here total expenditure includes the capital expenditure and as well as revenue expenditure. And total income includes revenue receipts and the recovery of loans and also other receipts. So if you are talking about the expenditure component here government in its budget, mainly it will allocate some funds for different things or different works that to be done by the government. For example, it can allocate some funds for the payments, for example, salaries, pensions. They comes under the revenue expenditure. And also some allocation of the funds that will be given for the creation of assets like creation of roads, some infrastructure projects for developmental projects in the country. So they include capital expenditure. So these two, that is revenue expenditure and the capital expenditure, that will comes under the total expenditure part of government. And the next one is income component. Here government can get income from the two ways. The first one is the revenue from the taxes which is imposed by the center, and the next one is the income that is mainly generated from the non-tax variables. So if you are talking about the revenue which is coming up from the taxes, they include, for example, income tax, corporate tax, custom duties, excise duties, and as well as GST. And the next one is income which is generated from the non-tax variables. They include external grants, interest receipts, dividend, and as well as profits. So what is this interest receipts? So whenever any loan which is given by our country to the another country, so that country which received the loan from the India, they need to pay the interest. So this is the interest receipts. And now let us see what is a revenue deficit. Here revenue deficit mainly related to the revenue expenditure and as well as the revenue receipts. Whenever the revenue expenditure which is more compared to that of the revenue receipts, it is called as a revenue deficit in simple language. And now let us see one important thing, that is Fiscal Responsibility and the Budget Management Act of 2003. So this Fiscal Responsibility and the Budget Management Act, that is FRBM Act, it will provide that this what the center need to do regarding this to limit fiscal deficit and as well as revenue deficit. So this FRBM Act mainly provides some important measures that to be taken by the center to limit the fiscal deficit and as well as the revenue deficit. So this act mainly enacted to institutionalize the fiscal discipline in the country and to reduce fiscal deficit and the revenue deficit, and also to improve the macroeconomic management in the country. And if you are talking about the limits of this fiscal deficit and the revenue deficit, if you see according to the targets that to be met by 2009, so initially this FRBM Act said that FD, that is fiscal deficit, should be 3% of the GDP and that should be achieved by 2009, and the revenue deficit should be 0.5% of our GDP and that should be achieved by the 2009. So the first, whenever this FRBM Act that came into existence and that came into force, it came up with these targets and that targets to be completed by 2009. And later on we came up with the amendments of 2012, and in this 2012 amendment we increased the target time, that is by 2015, and later on again we came up with the amendments in 2015. So the target that to be achieved by 2018 now. So according to this amendment of 2015, it mainly says that fiscal deficit that should be 3% of the GDP and that should be achieved by 2018 again. And the revenue deficit should be 0.5% of our GDP and that to be achieved by 2018. And recently we came up with the FRBM review committee which is headed by the N.K. Singh, and he came up with some important recommendations. So he said the recommendations mainly include that fiscal deficit should be not more than 3% of the GDP by 31st March 2020, and the next target here is fiscal deficit that should be decreased to 2.8% of the GDP by 2020 to 21, and the next target here is fiscal deficit that should be decreased to 2.5% of the GDP by 2023. And whenever we are talking about the revenue deficit, according to this N.K. Singh committee, it recommended that it should be 0.8% by March 31st, 2023. So these are the some targets. And this committee also talked about the debt to GDP ratio. So this committee mainly said that this debt mainly it is one of the cause for the increasing of the fiscal deficit of the country. So we need to maintain the debt to GDP ratio, and the overall debt to GDP ratio it should be 60%. That means 40% of it should be central, the 20% from the states. So these are the some important things which are mainly important regarding the prelims point of view. Now let us see the next article. Title says anti-dumping duty on viscose yarn proposed. So this article mainly talking about one important concept, that is anti-dumping duty. So this anti-dumping duty is an important topic which comes under the economy. That comes under GS paper 3, and this anti-dumping duty will be very important regarding prelims point of view. Now let us see the context and as well as some important details as well as some facts regarding this anti-dumping duty. So the context says that Ministry of Commerce and Industry recommended levy of anti-dumping duty on viscose spun yarn, which is mainly imported from the other countries like China, Vietnam and Indonesia. So why this move taken by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry? Because India Man-Made Manufacturing Associations, they sought to levy import of the viscose yarn, which is mainly hurting the domestic industries. So because of this, after the investigation which is done by the Directorate General of Trade Remedies, they came up with this move. And now let us see some facts regarding this anti-dumping. So before going into this anti-dumping, first we need to understand what is a dumping. So the dumping means, according to the international trade practices, whenever any country or any firm who exports the items at a price which is lower than the prices which are present in that domestic market, then this is called as a dumping, and it is one of the illegal trade practices. And this dumping mainly impacts the price of that product in the importing country, that is in the domestic country. So because of this, it will hit the margins and as well as the profits of the local manufacturing firms. So because of this, mainly to protect the domestic manufacturing, the importing country mainly imposes anti-dumping duty, mainly to rectify the situation of its trade distortive effect. So this is one of the trade distortion. Okay. So who will impose this anti-dumping duty? That is Directorate General of Trade Remedies. So if you are seeing some facts regarding this Directorate General of Trade Remedies, it is an apex national authority which comes under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and it will administer all the trade remedial measures. For example, we can say anti-dumping duty as well as countervailing duty, safeguard measures, etc., mainly to promote free and fair trade. So why this anti-dumping duty which is imposed? Mainly to protect the domestic industries and also to ensure the proper trade practices that are present in the country. So there will be some anti-dumping duty which is imposed. And now let us see the next article. Title says acclimatizing to climate risk. So this article mainly talking about there is a need of climate proof choices that to be taken in this year. So if you see the central theme, it mainly says that this year policymakers, industry captains and as well as citizens, they must take this climate proof choices. So what is the need of these climate proof choices? So because of the climate change that is evident, we are seeing some devastating events that are caused across the country and across the worldwide as well. So this article mainly talked about some of the recent reports regarding the climate change and as well as what are the important events that are mainly caused because of the climate change, and also it is talking about what is the need and what are the steps that to be taken. So this article mainly focusing on climate proof choices. So this article will be important regarding environment and ecology point of view, which comes under GS paper 3 which is very important regarding mains point of view, not from prelims. So whatever the points which are highlighted in this article, that can be used directly when you are writing answer regarding this climate change. So if you see the background, it mainly says that the climate change which is evident. So if you see in the North India, we are experiencing severe cold wave and the winter may be longer and as well as harsher because of the La Nina this year. And also because of the rising temperature across the world, there is sharp increase in the climate extreme events that are evident. If you see, according to the report by the Council of Energy, Environment and Water, it says that 75% of the districts in India, they are vulnerable. And if you're talking about the extreme climate risks that are facing by India witnessed about 250 extreme climate events between 1970 to 2005, and our country recorded about 310 extreme events only in the 2005 alone. So because of the extreme events that incurred the loss of exceeding $100 billion to the country, and also the intensity of the flood which is increased 8 times, drought affected districts increased by 13 times on average, and increase in the landslides and as well as heavy rainfall, that is more than 20 times, and the frequency of the cyclones is doubled. So because of this, we are facing some of the extreme climate risk. And what is the need? The need here is we need to enhance the resilience and as well as adaptive capacity. So this part will be important regarding disaster management as well. The first thing we can do here is we can create environment and health de-risking mission. So that will helpful in the emergency preparedness. It will also secure the critical resources, and it will also build some resilient infrastructure and as well as governance. So because of this, it can help to counter the increasing frequency and as well as intensity of the extreme climate events. So whenever we are prepared, then we can decrease the impact here. And we can also focus on democratizing the local climate related and as well as weather related data. And whenever we are getting or we are collecting the local climate related data, and whenever we are integrating with the risk, and we can also use the databases from the national, subnational, district and as well as the disaster and the climate plans. So this will be very helpful. And the next one is we can go for the restoration, revival and also recreation of the traditional climate resilient practices. What are the important practices that are used traditionally? We can also move towards those traditional climate practices such that we can decrease the impact of the climate change. And the next one is we need to focus on the indigenous community, because whenever we are coming up with any project, to make this project successful, community management or the community involvement is also important. So whenever the local communities who are involved in that project, then that project will be successful, because these indigenous communities or the local people, they will be the frontliners of ecosystem conservation. So there is a need of these indigenous communities, they need to be taken into account. And the next important one is we can go for the comprehensive climate risk atlas. So this atlas will mainly present the risk informed decision making. So whenever we are having this risk atlas, so for example, if you are taking, if you are having with a flood atlas, for example in the state of Orissa, so whenever we are having this atlas regarding the flood data, so before monsoon arrives, we can go for some activities like the desilting, and also we can go for the rehabilitation of the people who are living across this flood area. And we can also go for some important thing like we can go for the diversion of water, so and so. So because of this, we can efficiently manage the disaster. Okay, we can go for the efficient preparedness before the disaster comes. So in this way, this climate risk atlas that will identify, that will assess and also that will project the chronic and as well as the acute risk against this climate events, like we can say urban heat stress, water stress, crop loss, vector borne diseases and diversity collapse, etc. So these are the things that can be efficiently managed. And the next one is this climate risk atlas will also helps to access the resilience and as well as adaptation capabilities, such that it will also help the climate proofing critical infrastructure. And the next one is finance climate action. So there is a need of excessive finance. We can go for the risk financing instruments, risk retention, identification of the tools, and as well as one important thing, that is green climate fund, mainly for the maintenance of the environment. And that's such that we can also enhance the public finance pool. We can gear up the efficient allocation of the resources for the climate change. And the next one is we can attract the private investments in the climate proofing infrastructure, because we need technology, right? So mainly if you want to get the technology, we can also attract the private investors and as well as the foreign investors. So these are the some important steps that can be taken. And now let us see the next article. Title says a leopard count with a missing benchmark number. So this article mainly focusing on the number of the leopard. So recently the report which is released, and this report mainly highlights that there is 60% increase in the number of leopards in India. So this article mainly talking about what are the issues regarding the number of leopards in India. This article will be important regarding environment and ecology, which comes under GS paper 3, and this topic will be important regarding mains. Now let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. So the background here is recently Status of Leopards in India 2018 released. So this report mainly talks about the number of leopards in the country. So according to this report, it mainly says that India's leopard population which increased by 60% in the 4 years. So last leopard census which was done in the year 2014, and this report it is of 2018. So this article mainly says that the population estimated at this geographical scale mainly in the 21 states. So getting the information regarding this top carnivores, it is very difficult, and it is also very tricky, and it requires a colossal effort. effort. So if you're talking about the status of leopards in India 2018, it depicted the country has about 12,852 tiger population, and this article author mainly says that it is not 12,852, it may be more. When we compare to the top this number, it may be more than 20,000 leopards in India. So in this context, this article mainly says that whenever we are going for the species conservation, what will be the important goal? The goal for this species conservation here is to protect that species and to increase the population of that species with a special interest. So in this context, whenever we are going for monitoring this, we should go for the scientific monitoring. So we need to know the current number of that so and so animal, and we need to refer whether the number is increasing or not. So this article mainly talking about the issues regarding the leopard population in India. So these leopard habitats mainly includes rocky outcrops, small dry forest, high elevation habitats in the Himalayas, and as well as some agricultural landscape. So in these areas we can see the leopards are present, but these areas, they are not the part of this exercise of 2018. So these are the excluded mainly, and they went for the counting of these leopards in the tiger habitat areas. And whenever we want to go for the including of these areas also, we need enormous resources and we need to spend lot of time to carry out this study because of the size of India. So these are the first and the second important issues, and this article mainly cited one important example, that is BRT Hills Kaveri Banerghatta Tiger Reserve. So in this area is about 2,825 square kilometers, and the leopard population that is found here is just 267 individuals. But if you are comparing with another area in the state of Karnataka, it mainly says that in the Devaranya Reserve Forest, so the name of the reserve forest here is Devaranya. So in this Devaranya Reserve Forest, there are about 15 leopards. They are found in a very, very small area of 70 square kilometers. So in this way, these small areas, they are excluded here. So because of this, what happened, this leopard number which is misguided or misleading. And the next one is this report mainly says that the leopard number which is increased by 60% in the 4 years. But if you are comparing with the 2014 study, it was mainly said that there are about 7,910 population of the leopards, and the study mainly done in the 18 states, and the area is 92,164 square kilometers. If you are comparing this data with the 2018 study, so the study mainly done in the 21 states, study area which is increased by 25%. So as we know the study area which is increased by 25%, how can we compare the number of leopards which are present in the 2014 study with the 2018 study? So it is also misleading thing. So this article finally talks about what are the threats which are faced by the leopards. The first one is habitat loss, mainly because of the mining projects, quarrying projects, poaching for the body parts, especially the nails and as well as skin. And there is a mortality of these leopards mainly due to the vehicular collisions, and also retaliating killing because of the human wildlife conflict. So these are some threats here. So this is the important gist of this editorial. I hope you understand this editorial. So there are other articles in the Hindu newspaper like FATF in the page number 13 regarding the anti-money laundering, and also in the page number 12 regarding the e-goods, and also in the page number 12 there is one first article regarding the Brexit. We already discussed about these articles in a very great detail in our Hindu analysis. So because of that, I left those topics. So these are some important articles which appear in the today's Hindu newspaper. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. Thank you so much.